Venezuela's National Assembly has postponed the final debate on a landmark amnesty bill that could have led to release of hundreds of political prisoners. Lawmakers failed to agree on key articles, delaying the second and final vote on the highly anticipated legislation. The bill, first backed in an initial reading last week, aims to grant clemency to people detained for political reasons, but disagreements over its scope has stalled progress. Critics and relatives of detainees have been pressing for swift action. The debate is expected to resume next week. Listen in.
Diputados que estén a favor con el diferimiento de la discusión en segunda instancia del proyecto de ley de amnistía para la convivencia democrática, quedando aprobado hasta el artículo número 6, sírvanse manifestarlo con la señal de costumbre. Queda aprobado por unanimidad. Continuaremos la discusión en la próxima sesión ordinaria la semana próxima.
We are now being joined again by retired Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh. Thank you for joining us back here today on NewsX World. What disagreements or sticking points are lawmakers trying to resolve before continuing this debate?
See, trust is a luxury, and what we are dealing in is verification. Delay is a sign of internal power struggle. So what we see here is that, the final debate on amnesty law could clear charges against hundreds of political prisoners, including people jailed for protest of dissent. So I think the draft law has shifted from broad sweeping amnesty to more limited scope, including serious crimes, like human rights violations, and completing and automatic release. So opposition demonstrations are still going on. Families demand full release of detainees, which is around, I think, 600 people. They are still imprisoned. So despite hundreds of being freed, I think some people are being detained on political motives. So this is a setback because opposition leader like John Pablo, and he's being released and repeatedly re-detained, then highlighting, the internal crisis in the country. So somewhere what we see in Venezuela, that the legal process is more about a human story. For decades, the dissent was criminalized and voices were silent behind the bars. But today, Venezuelans are asking a simple question, that will justice replace repression, which we don't see because the amnesty bill was meant to address these wounds, which has been postponed. So now lack of need because of the political hesitation and legal complicities have actually created a furor. See, families of prisoners are not talking about aberrations. They want the brothers, sisters and fathers and neighbors to be out immediately, but it is only happening on paper. So that is why people, when they remain imprisoned, I think the political crisis is going to worsen in Venezuela, and political prisoners, they have to come out because their human rights are being violated blatantly. So I think possibility does exist, but it does not guarantee that. So it will be the final bill on amnesty which will be needed, and it has to align with the human right obligation and international pressure, which must remain consistent. Otherwise, there will be no clear mechanism to ensure the release, whether it is conditional or reversible. So let's hope that Venezuela will come out from the pages of regression towards the more meaningful reconciliation. Ellie.
Thank you. Stay with us as we will be back with you very shortly. In a historic visit to Venezuela, US Energy Secretary Chris Wright toured oil facilities with acting President Delcy Rodriguez on Thursday. The visit marks a significant shift in relations, with the two leaders discussing investments in Venezuela's oil sector. Wright announced plans to invest over $100 million to upgrade the country's oil facilities, aiming to double production in the next 12 to 18 months. This marks a new chapter in US-Venezuela relations, which have been strained for years. The visit follows a recent series of political reforms in Venezuela, including a new amnesty plan for political prisoners. We're now being joined again by retired Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh. Thank you for joining us back here. How does this visit reflect the broader shift in US-Venezuela relations following changes in Venezuela's leadership and recent policy reforms?
Ellie, we all know that Rodriguez is sitting because President Trump wants her to be in the power. So arrival of US Energy Secretary Chris Wright to meet with acting President Delcy Rodriguez, it marks a high-level American presence since the embassy closure in Venezuela that was done in 2019. And more crucially, since US Special Forces have captured Nicolas Maduro earlier this year, the Trump administration is playing a high-stake game of commerce over combat. As the Secretary Wright also said that, you can transform a national trajectory more effectively through trades than the boot on ground. But see, if we see the friction point, while the US Treasury is lifting license to companies like Chevron expand, Venezuela's legislature is simultaneously delaying the debates on Amnesty International or the amnesty to the people. So somewhere we see that, US capital is trying to fix the oil sector, but they are not ready to hand over the keys to the palace. So the thing is very, very delicate, and from US perspective, they are looking at maximum pressure to strategic engagement. However, we know that global markets of oil, they remain volatile, and stabilizing a world's largest proven oil reserve, and as you brought out, that to double the production of oil, it remains the priority of Trump administration. So I think they would like to re-establish the diplomatic ties, and they will also try that by doing the production in a maximum way, they can also silent China, because maximum oil was being taken from Venezuela by China. So they want to actually, somewhere curb the China growing power also, because oil for loan agreement was signed, and now it is sidelined by US, which was done between China and Venezuela. So I think in geopolitics, pragmatism always outlines idealism, and US priority remains the energy security as of the moment, because they also know the failed state of world's largest oil is a biggest threat to US interest in case the situation is delayed. So Washington is betting on economic integration, which will eventually force the hand of democracy in years to come.
Thank you, Himanshi, for joining us here today on NewsX World. Portugal's Parliament on